In this lesson, I'm going to get the ears done so we can move on to corrective deformation. Now, before I get started with this work, I do want to point out that if you ever find yourself having to rebuild the face, because you can rebuild the face rig just like you do the body. And if you have to do any rebuilding, Advanced Skeleton recognizes the original name of the name cluster. So if you changed your name cluster name like I did, I changed mine to main SC because I didn't like the default name skin cluster 1. So I changed mine to main SC. If you have to rebuild the face and you're having any issues, change this back to the original name that the skin cluster was called before you started the face building. And that would apply for the body too. If you have any issues rebuilding, return this back. In my case, it would be skin cluster 1. All right, so when we take a look at her ears over here, let me move this to the side and isolate it. One of the great things about using the multi-skin cluster is we really have only one joint to compete with for these ears. So you'll have the head and basically the ear joints, because this is on its own skin cluster. Now, if we had all the other stuff that's on here competing, like the eyebrows and stuff like that, if you didn't turn on multi-skin cluster, you would be fighting the same fight I was fighting down here with the lips when I was trying to get them done. But here, you see her head is built in a really weird way, so there's no way that the system would have figured out what the right thing to do is over here. So I'm going to do a quick paint job to show you what I want. This first joint is probably the most problematic because of what range it has to have. So if you go to the second also has a little bit of an issue. And at about D, the resolution is a lot easier. It just pretty much has to go along the length of the ear and just influence in a hierarchical manner. So this is not so hard when we get to about there. I'm going to forward through the paint job. It'll be really simple, and just give it charge over this base and take away the influence that it has on the top over here. Yeah, so this is the kind of weighting that I was looking for, just something controlling the base. So you just saw me do a little bit of a painting over there. I was going to take away what I don't want it to influence up here, but I would rather give it to the joint that I want to receive it when I get there. So here, in an attempt to stop any bouncing around of assignments, I'm just going to make sure this area, which shouldn't be impacted by anything but the head joint, gets all the influence. So I have a YouTube viewer who always gives me a lot of feedback in the comments, and it's Marcus. And Marcus said in one of the previous videos, he asked me why I wasn't using the weights hammer tool. And it's right here. I think it's skin hammer weights. This is a really cool tool. See what it actually does. If you select the vertice that's really out of place, like some of the ones that were out of place at the lip, that were far off from their neighbors. If I selected one of them and hit the hammer weights tool, it would give me an average of its neighbors. So it'll put it at a more appropriate location around its neighbors. Actually, this is a good opportunity to show the hammer tool. I'm going to show you how much it's very much like smoothing. So here, this part where we have this bad assignment or bad sharing of vertices at the transition point. If I was to grab all of these vertices and with those vertices selected, if I go apply, you see, it does its best to average, right? And you can tell it's a very expensive operation because it took a while to run. But basically, it's really just a smoothing operation, right? So for something like this, with those very same vertices selected, if I went to the paint weights tool, I could perform that same operation, but with a flood a lot faster. So if I go smooth and I select in this particular instance the head, since it's the one sharing all these points with all these guys, you do have to be strategic about what you pick though if you're smooth flooding. Whereas if you do a hammer weights, it'll just average between everybody that's sharing the points. But here you might want to make sure you have selected the right joint that you want. But here if I just go flood, I can keep running a flood operation and it does that same averaging operation a lot faster. All right, so that's as much work as I'm willing to do on the ears, and finalizing the weight painting for the ears concludes all the weight painting for this entire character. If there's any additional work to do in weight painting, which would mostly be cleanup work, I'll do it off screen, so you won't see me doing any more weight painting. I think I've done enough of it. And this ear doesn't look bad. I'll probably just do all this stuff off screen, but it's pretty much the same thing. I'll just select the vertices in these really weird regions and do a smooth flooding. But remember also a hammer weights would also work. All right, so let's try that thing one more time before I leave. I'm just going to select all of these vertices here. And if I go skin, hammer weights, and I go apply, it does a nice averaging. And last thing, I do want you guys to see what it looks like when you activate the Delta Mesh Deformer. So just remember, if you added a Delta Mesh Deformer, make good use of it. So if I select the mesh and I go to it and I turn on the envelope, you get a much better interpolation. And also don't forget to run your last mirror operation, right? You want to make sure that everything you've done is transferred to the other side. I'm going to turn off selection highlighting. Make sure I go to build pose, so the pose is in the neutral pose. Make sure I have it on first, select it. Go inside the weight painting tool. Remember, this is a safe way to do it. Make sure I select one of the right side. One that was more than likely broken, like that one right there. Turn off selection highlighting. Maybe even isolate the mesh. Go skin, mirror. Make sure we're going from, in my case, positive to negative. And on the main skin cluster, go apply. Yeah, and that is pretty much all the weight painting I did. So you can go through and just to be sure, make sure you mirror everything just in case you left something out. Yeah, this is something I'm gonna have to fix, but yeah, just go through and get all of them just to be on the safe side, because I'm pretty sure I might have made some changes and forgot to push things over to the other side.